This is the Buffett Mindset channel where we practice patience and calm wealth building daily. If you enjoy these types of videos, consider liking and subscribing. This will mean a lot to the channel. Most men go through decades before discovering even one of the truths that could have rewritten their lives. They live on the surface, working, earning, reacting, but never awakening. But you, right now, are about to learn 3 life lessons that every man must face if he intends to escape mediocrity. They are not kite, they are not comfortable, but they are necessary. Because comfort is what built the cage you now live in, and own truth can tear it down. These lessons are the kind that divide your life into 4 and after. The moment you realized the world was never holding you back, only your blindness was. The first truth is this: the world does not owe you fairness, it owes you opportunity, and even that you must seize. Most men die waiting for fairness to arrive, convinced that the universe is a courtroom where justice would eventually balance the scales. It never will. The man who believes in fairness will always resent the man who understands leverage. You must learn that the world rewards those who play the game consciously, not emotionally. It's not about who works the hardest, it's about who works correctly. The laws of life are indifferent. They reward precision, not pity. You can cry about the system, or you can learn its rhythm and bend it toward your advantage. The one pain do not curse unfairness, they study it, master it, and use it and fuel. You see, the illusion of fairness is the most dangerous myth there sold to mankind. It teaches dependence, it breeds weakness, it makes you believe that your suffering entitles you to reward. But the world is not a parent, it is a mirror. It reflects only what you command from it. Well, stop waiting for justice. Stop craving validation. Accept that no one is coming to hand you balance. Power does not come to the man who hopes, come to the man who decides. Decide that life indifference is your ally, not your enemy. Because when you stop expecting fairness, you start operating with clarity. The second truth: discipline will give you everything that motivation cannot. Motivation is a visitor. Discipline is a resident. The weak chase motivation, like at currency scrolling for quotes, searching for inspiration, waiting for that emotional spark to move them. But the strong know that discipline is the art of doing what must be done, especially when you feel nothing. Discipline doesn't beg your feelings for permission. It builds silently. It's gravity. It keeps you grounded when excitement fades. You will never outwork a disciplined man because his energy is not borrowed from emotion. It's built from structure. When you train your mind to move on command, your entire life begins to obey you. That when wealth starts compound, that when respect becomes automatic, that when your presence begins to carry weight because the man who conquers himself commands all else. Think of the greats Buffett, Carnegie, Ford. They didn't rise because they felt inspired every morning. They rose because they decided to execute day after day while others debated, doubted, or delayed. Discipline turns days into results, results into reputation, and reputation into empire. You must understand this consistency is more powerful than intensity. Most men burn bright for a moment and disappear like sparks. Discipline builds the furnace that never goes out. It is not sexy, it is not praised, but it is the only difference between those who wish and those who win. You will not always feel like working.
You will not always believe, but the disciplined man doesn't ask if he feels ready. He simply shows up and leaves readiness to photo.
The third truth: your circle is your ceiling. You can never outperform the standards of those you spend your time with. If your friends complain, you adapt to their tone. If they gossip, you ell their weakness. If they make excuses, you as soon find your own. Environment is stronger than willpower, because what you absorb unconsciously shapes what you execute consciously. Every man believes he is immune, but no one is. The habits, words, and expectations of your circle will either fuel you or drain you. They are not neutral. They are rejection. So look around. Who speaks into your ear daily? Who do you share your victories and failures with? Do they rise when you rise, or do they shrink from your progress? The hard truth is that you cannot stay loyal to small minds and expect a large life. Loyalty is sacred, but misplaced loyalty is suicide. You must protect your mental environment like a vault, because when mediocrity can speak to you freely, it'd hypnotize you slowly. The world Wilke called as arrogance, but not arrogance, it's awareness. A king cannot spend his days at the table of jesters and expect his kingdom to prosper. If you want to elevate, you must curate your surroundings. Replace those who pacify you with those who pressure you. Trade comfort for accountability. Seek out men who make you feel behind, not because they mock you, but because they remind you of what's possible. Growth demands friction. The wrong people dull your edge, the right people sharpen it. The top point understand this instinctively. They treat access currency. They know that energy is contagious, and they spend theirs with precision. These three truths, life is not fair, discipline over motivation, and your circle defends your ceiling, are not theories, they are laws. The laws are not optional. You can ignore them, but you cannot escape their consequence. Every man pays the price of ignorance or obedience. The difference is that obedience compounds, ignorance collapses. If you live by these laws, the world will bend differently for you. You will no longer crave permission because your results will speak for you. You will no longer chase approval because your actions will validate themselves. You will no longer seek comfort for you. You'll have replaced it with control. And control is the only freedom worth having. You will lose people, yes. You will face solitude, yes. But remember this. The climb is supposed to get quiet. It's not meant for everyone to understand. The mountain gets thinner at the top, because only the discipline can breathe that air. And when you reach that summit, when you look back on the life you've built, not the one given to you, not the one expected of you, but the one you commanded, you'll know peace, because you'll know truth. The lesson that follows is not gentle, nor meant for those who seek comfort over conquest. It begins when you accept that mediocrity isn't the absence of talent, it's the tolerance of its scales. Every man wants greatness until he realizes what it demands. Solitude, rejection, and a lifetime of discipline that feels like quiet madness. But mediocre, it's easy, it's cheap. It welcomes you with warm arms and familiar faces. It praises your effort, but never your execution. It tells you you're doing enough, when deep down you know you've been coasting. The reason most men never rise is not because they lack intelligence or opportunity. It's because they fear the cost of separation. To break free from average is to walk alone for a while, and most cannot bear the echo of their own thoughts without noise to distract them. The first law of escape is this: stop negotiating with your potential. Every time you tell yourself, I'll start tomorrow, or I just need more motivation, you trade power for comfort. Potential is not a promise, it's a debt. It demands payment in the form of daily discipline, not emotional enthusiasm. The man who keeps waiting for the right moment is already lost, because while he waits, life moves. The top 1% don't chase readiness, they manufacture it. They understand that greatness grows from motion, not motivation. You can refine your aim, you go, but you cannot correct a life that never begins. Every second spent waiting is a lifetime spent wondering. And once you start, the second law takes over. The world rewards precision, not motion. Hard work is only power when aimed. Most men confuse effort with dexterity. They swing wildly and wonder why nothing breaks. But look at the great builders, thinkers, and investors. Every move they make is law and motion. Warren Buffett doesn't act off, but when he does, he acts decisively. Why? Because clarity is more valuable than speed. A single precise decision outperforms 1,000 frantic ones. When your vision is clear, your energy compounds. When it's scattered, your power evaporates. You must learn to slow down your mind until your decisions carry weight, because every time you act without clarity, you dig a hole instead of laying a brick. To build precision, you must master silence. The man who cannot sit still will never build anything steady. Quiet is the way you sharpen the blade of your mind. That way your next great move reveals itself, not in noise, not in panic, but in stillness. Buffett spends most of his time reading, thinking, not acting. The world mocks that pace because it confuses movement with progress. But you've come to see that slowness is not weakness, it is preparation. Every decision made in silence echoes longer than 1,000 made in noise. Then comes the third law. Your life will always expand to the size of your standards. You can't live a high life with low expectations. Most men don't fail because of lack of skill. They fail because of low standards disguised as realism. They convince themselves that modest goals are wisdom, that mediocrity is balance. But mediocrity is not balance, it's surrender. Standards are the boundaries between the man you are and the man you could become. If your standards are loose, your life will leak energy. If they are tight, your life will hold power. Every habit, every decision, every relationship must answer to your standard. Your standard dictates what you tolerate. Tolerate laziness and it grows. Tolerate excuse and they'll multiply. Tolerate weak environments and they'll shape you. The great men of history built not only fortunes, but frameworks, personal constitutions they refused to betray. When you raise your standards, the world will resist. You'll lose friends, jobs, comfort, but you'll gain command. Because the universe doesn't give you what you want. It gives you what you do not tolerate losing. And when the world tests those standards, and it is, you will not flinch. You'll welcome the pressure. Because pressure is not punishment, it's proof of potential. Every challenge that enters your life is a test of your boundaries. It is life asking, do you still stand by the standard you declared? Most fold. You won't. You'll hold your line even when it costs you. Because once you compromise for convenience, the fall begins. And make no mistake, compromise is not peace. It's surrender disguised as wisdom. The moment you begin enforcing your standards, your world will reorganize itself. The wrong people will fall away. The right ones will rise to meet you. Opportunities will align, not because you begged for them, but because you became worthy of them. That the paradox of power is not earned by effort alone, but by elevation of identity. Once your identity becomes law, results are like gravity. You don't chase success, you become the kind of man it cannot ignore. Now here we clear 3 laws: no negotiation with potential, precision over motion, and standards your ceiling are not motivational slogans, they are disciplines of the mind. To live by them means burning every excuse, cutting every tie that weak your will, and rejecting the world's soft definitions of balance and realism. You must understand realism is often cowardice dressed in intellect. The realest thing you could do is believe in your potential enough to act like it inevitable. Every morning, you will wake to a choice, comfort or clarity. Each night, you will face the mirror and answer one question: did I live by law or by emotion? Because emotion will sell you pleasure now and pain later. Law sells you struggle now and power forever. That the trade the one understand. That the path Buffett walked, Munger enforced, and Carnegie demanded. They didn't just master finance, they mastered philosophy. You can too. It doesn't require wealth, it requires will. Will to act without applause. Will to walk without company. Will to persist without proof. Because that's what separates the few who rule from the many who follow. And when you finally decide, really decide to live by these truths, the world will recognize you. Not by your clothes, not by your words, but by your gravity. The man who lives by law doesn't chase, he attracts. He speaks little, acts decisively, moves deliberately. He no longer wastes energy on noise, be he tuned in to rhythm. He no longer worries about fairness, because he understands order. He no longer fears loss, because he learned to let go of everything that keeps him small. That is the freedom you're building toward, not comfort, not applause, but command. And one day, when the noise of the world fades and you're alone with your thoughts, you'll realize it was never about conquering others. It was about conquering yourself. That the moment you'll finally be free. Most men spend their lives chasing external victories, money, title, status, believing that somewhere beyond the horizon lies the peace they've been promised. But the truth you'll learn, the one you're tied to live by and never confess, is this: peace is not found after success. They require for it. You do not build peace through achievement. You build achievement through peace. The man who is restless on the inside will sabotage every victory he earns on the outside. That's why the masses climb endlessly only to fall again, because they build empires on anxiety. They think they can outwork their unease, but an unsettled mind is like a cracked fountain. No matter how high you build, the collapse is inevitable. The first fortress a man must master is not financial, but mental. Wealth without control of the mind is nothing but gilded chaos. So how does one build this inner peace? Through order. Not the kind forced upon you by rules, but the kind born from personal rhythm. When you wake, when you eat, when you work, when you rest, all must follow design. Because chaos is the default of the world, and the man who does not enforce structure will be swallowed by it. Buffett understood this long before he became the Oracle of Omaha. He didn't chase every opportunity, didn't answer every call, didn't attend every meeting. Why? Because he valued his attention like gold. Treated his focus-based currency not to be wasted on noise or novelty. Every distraction was an invisible thief, and he refused to be robbed. His secret was not superhuman talent, it was self-imposed simplicity. The lesson hand is that greatness is never loud, it's steady, it's predictable. The world praises those who do 1,000 things once, but it quietly obeys those who do one thing 1,000 times. Repetition is not boring. It compounds in disguise. You master a craft not through inspiration, but through routine. That's why discipline feels dull to the masses. They mistake consistency for monotony, not realizing that repetition is the mother of mastery. Every morning that you rise and do what others avoid, every hour that you spend refining instead of reacting, you widen the gap between you and them. Slowly, silently, until one day that gap becomes a chasm and they call you lucky. But peace and order mean nothing without one final truth. You must learn to detach from outcomes. Every man who clings to the result strangles his own progress. You cannot control outcomes. You can only control inputs. When you obsess over results, you live in tension. When you master process, you live in power. Buffett doesn't check the market daily. His confidence is not tied to noise. He trusts his principles, not the panic of the crowd. He plays the long game while others chase the illusion of quick returns. That's what separates an investor from a gambler, a builder from a dreamer, a king from a pawn. Detachment is not indifference, it's mastery, knowing that control lies not in outcome, but in preparation. Think about this. A warrior doesn't question whether the arrow would strike. His only concern is the precision of his aim and the steadiness of his hand. He knows that mastery of the motion guarantees the accuracy of the result. Likewise, the man who perfects his thinking never worries about his destiny. It will arrive on schedule. You do not chase success, you align with. You don't plead for peace, you prepare for it. The universe bends toward those who act with certainty. That not mysticism, that mathematics. Confidence multiplied by consistency equals inevitability. Now, heed the paradox. The more detached you become from outcomes, the faster they arrive. Because when you stop chasing, you stop signaling desperation. Night to I and on. Heedly, you do not chase success. You align with it. You don't plead for peace, you prepare for it. The universe bends toward those who act with certainty. That not mysticism, that mathematics. Confidence multiplied by consistency equals inevitability. Now, heed the paradox. The more detached you become from outcomes, the faster they arrive. Because when you stop chasing, you stop signaling desperation. The universe. You start moving like a man who already possesses what he seeks, and the world responds in kind. You begin to think, speak, and act after one who commands reality instead of one who begs from it. This is why abundance begins in thought long before it shows in the bank. Because wealth is not something you get, it's something you embody. Every belief you hold, every habit you repeat, every standard you enforce builds that embodiment. When your inner world aligns with abundance, your outer world becomes its et. You'll soon see how the weak misunderstand this truth. They think detachment means laziness or arrogance. But detachment is simply trust in the system you've built. It's confidence in your law, faith in your preparation. It's looking at a challenge and knowing that win or lose, you remain unchanged in essence. That is power. When failure can no longer frighten you and success can no longer seduce you, you've reached mastery. You've become untouchable. Not because you avoid storms, but because you walk through them with stillness in your eyes. That stillness, that calm within chaos, will be the rarest thing about you. People will feel it before you speak. They'll sense it when you enter the room. You'll carry the weight of a man who's not performing, but existing in truth and in a world addicted to noise. That quiet strength will be magnetic. It's what draws others to you, what earns respect without demand, what makes even the powerful pause when you speak. They won't know why, but you will. Because peace is power made visible, and from that peace, your decisions should change. You won't rush, you won't chase. You'll watch, you'll wait. You'll move when the timing aligns, not when emotion commands. You'll learn that patience is not passivity, it's the sharpest form of strategy. Every impulsive man spends his life paying for the moments he refused to wait. Every patient man collects those payments in compound. This is the rhythm of wealth, the mastery of greatness, slow, deliberate, and inevitable. So let the world mock your pace. Let them call you boring, obsessive, detached. While they burn out in pursuit of approval, you'll be building empires in silence. Because the man who has mastered peace no longer competes. He compounds. And when you've lived this way long enough, when your habits have turned to instinct and your instinct to law, you'll understand the final paradox of success. The less you force, the more you attract. The less you rush, the faster you rise. The less you need, the more you receive. At that point, you won't even think about mediocrity anymore. You'll have outgrown it. It'd feel foreign, like a dream you can no longer recall. And those who once told you to slow down will now ask you for direction. But you won't gloat. You'll simply smile, because you'll know they could have joined you. They weren't willing to face these truths, and that, in the end, is what separates the few who lead from the many who fold. Not intelligence, not talent, but the courage to face what most men avoid. The courage to see, to act, and to rise. When that courage finally becomes part of your nature, when you've stopped running from the mirror and started shaping the reflection, you'll understand that life was never supposed to be easy. It was supposed to refine you. Every obstacle, every betrayal, every setback was not there to rake you, but to carve away the parts of you that couldn't carry greatness. You will look back on the pain that once haunted you and realize it was the raw material of your power. You'll understand that the man who avoids struggle also avoids strength, and the man who hides from discomfort hides from destiny. Because comfort is a slow death, it sedates your hunger. It numbs your instinct, and it makes you forget what it felt like to burn for something higher. If you truly want freedom, you must love the fire. Not because it feels good, but because it reveals truth. You will start to see life like a craftsman sees marble. The stone itself is not beautiful, it's rough, cold, and unshaped, but in the hands of a master, every strike of the chisel brings clarity. That what the world is doing to you when it tests you, it's chiseling. Every loss is a strike, every rejection, every failure, every quiet night when no one applauds you. It's the sound of progress being sculpted. The unwise curse the blows, the wise thank them, because each one brings them closer to the figure hidden beneath. And once you learn to welcome the chisel, you become unstoppable. You'll realize that nothing outside you can hurt you unless you assign it meaning. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. This is where lesson 4 begins. Growth demands destruction. You and it next you suffering is optional. Yes, it's lesson boy. You cannot evolve and remain the same. You cannot carry old habits into a new life and expect elevation. Every level of growth requires a shedding, a letting go of beliefs, people, and comforts that once felt essential. The same mindset that built your current life cannot build the next one. Most men fail not because they lack desire, but because they cling to outdated versions of themselves. They keep trying to grow while protecting their old identity, not realizing that identity is the price of progress. You must kill the man you were to birth the man you're meant to be. That process isn't poetic, it's violent. It will feel like loss. It will feel like confusion. You'll question whether you're making a mistake. But here, read, confusion is not failure, it's rebirth. When a snake sheds its skin, it becomes blind for a moment. That blindness is not weakness, it's transition. You too would go through that blindness. You'll lose your bearings, your old certainties, your old routines, but that's how you'll know you're close. The cocoon is dark before the wings appear. The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. The only men who never find that treasure are the ones who refuse to leave the safety of who they were. You must also understand that success demands solitude. There will come a season when you'll walk alone, not because no one cares, but because no one can walk that stretch with you. It's the price of alignment. You can't drag the unready into your destiny. They will misunderstand you. They'll call you distant, arrogant, obsessed. They'll laugh when you talk about discipline and call you extreme when you protect your time. But you must walk through that noise, because greatness always walks alone before it walks among kings. Buffett spent decades reading, thinking, choosing solitude over noise. People mocked his simplicity until it made him immortal. The crowd craves excitement, the master craves clarity. You will be tempted to return to the crowd for comfort, to share your fire with those who never tended their own. Don't. They will not understand. They will try to extinguish what they cannot comprehend. Protect your silence. It's that your next level is born. When you stop explaining yourself to small minds, you reclaim your focus. And when you reclaim your focus, you reclaim your life. Because the man who guards his focus guards his future. Eventually, the solitude that once felt heavy will start to feel holy. You'll start to love your own company. You'll wake up and realize that you no longer need validation, but you've built internal confirmation. The applause that once fueled you, you sound hollow. You'll understand that true success is quiet, steady, and unshaken. It doesn't shout, it doesn't announce, it doesn't need to be seen, it simply is. The richest man is not the one who earns the most, but the one who moves through life with the least internal noise. And when that moment arrives, when solitude becomes your sanctuary, you'll finally see that the journey was never about money or fame or even mastery. It was about freedom. Freedom from the opinions of others. Freedom from the fear of failure. Freedom from the weight of pretending. Freedom from your old self. And that freedom comes with one final law: to control your inner dialogue. Because no enemy is more dangerous than your own thoughts when left unchecked. The voice in your head can be your ally or your executioner. Get up for weakness when you're tired, doubt when you're close, excuses when you're scared. You must train that voice as you would train a muscle. Replace its language, remove its poison, feed it clarity until confusion starves. Every great man you admire built empires not in the world, but in their minds. Their self-talk was their foundation. The man who commands his inner dialogue commands his destiny. So when you wake tomorrow, start with this. Speak strength into the silence. Replace I can't with I'm becoming. Replace I hope with I do. The subconscious obeys repetition. The body follows thought. The world mirrors belief. Change the script and the story changes. You don't need to fight your old self, you need to outgrow him. And when you do, when you've walked through the fire, shed the skin, and silence the noise, you'll look around and realize the world has changed. But it wasn't the world, it was you. The same places will feel different. The same faces will speak differently. The same obstacles will crumble with ease, because the external world is a mirror of your internal state. Be mounted, and once the mirror reflects mastery, mediocrity can no longer find you. You've outgrown it, outlasted it, outbuilt it. That when you'll finally understand the truth behind it, you were never meant to escape mediocrity. You were meant to transcend it. And when transcendence finally takes root, it won't announce itself with fanfare or fireworks. It'd arrive quietly, like dawn breaking over a mountain. One morning you'll wake up and realize you no longer move from fear, from proving, from desperation. You'll move from power calm, grounded, and unstoppable. The noise of the world won't vanish, but it lose its grip on you. The same voices that once distracted you will sound faint. It echoes from another life. You'll see that your battles were never external. They were internal wars projected outward. Every limitation, every obstacle, every so-called enemy was just a reflection of inner conflict waiting to be mastered. When you master yourself, life stops fighting you. It starts following your command. This is where the final transformation begins. The man who once chased becomes the man who attracts. You'll see that force and flow are not enemies, they're phases. You're forced to build the foundation, but you flow to expand the empire. In your early years, you fought for every inch. Now, your presence moves mountains. The world bends toward your rhythm, not because you overpower it, but because you've aligned with the laws that govern it, that the difference between effort and elegance. The amateur demands, the master attracts. The amateur strives, the master allows. You will still work, but it will no longer feel like labor. It will feel like expression, your energy translated into creation. In your awareness deep pit, you'll realize that everything you once thought you wanted, the applause, the money, the recognition, were never the true goal. They were tests. Each desire was a mirror showing you what you needed to learn about yourself. You wanted wealth, not for the money, but for the discipline it forced you to build. You wanted status, not for the praise, but for the courage it required to stand alone. You wanted mastery, not for the skill, but but for the silence it demanded. In the end, all goals are teachers, and once their lesson is learned, they dissolve. What remains is wisdom. You may lack meds. You forced to build the foundation, but you flow to expand the empire. In your early years, you fought for every inch. Now your presence moves mountains. The world bends toward your rhythm, not because you overpower it, but because you've aligned with the laws that govern it. That the difference between effort and elegance. The amateur demands, the master attracts, the amateur strives, the master allows. You will still work, but it will no longer feel like labor. It will feel like expression. Your energy translated into creation. In your awareness deep pit, you'll realize that everything you once thought you wanted, the applause, the money, the recognition, were never the true goal. They were tests. Each desire was a mirror showing you what you needed to learn about yourself. You wanted wealth, not for the money, but for the discipline it forced you to build. You wanted status, not for the praise, but for the courage it required to stand alone. You wanted mastery, not for the skill, but for the silence it demanded. In the end, all goals are teachers, and once their lesson is learned, they dissolve. What remains is wisdom. That wisdom is what separates a man who merely succeeds from a man who leaves legacy. Success is achievement. Legacy is influence multiplied through time. The former dies with you, the latter outlives you. Legacy doesn't come from adding more to your name, it comes from giving more of your truth. When your words, your principles, and your example become the blueprint for others to rise, you've transcended self. You've joined the timeless fraternity of builders whose wealth isn't counted in dollars, but in action. Buffett understood this, that's why he said he wanted to leave his fortune not to his children, but to the system that allowed him to earn it. Because wealth without wisdom corrupts. But wealth backed by philosophy compounds beyond generation. That is the stage where the master becomes the mentor. You stop seeking teachers and start becoming one. But be careful, yes and no. Green habits. In speaking teachers and start becoming one. But be careful. The ego is patient. It'd whisper, now you've made it. It'd tempt you to cling to your pedestal, to seek validation of the wise man instead of remaining the humble student. Resist it. The second you believe you've arrived, you begin to rot. Growth never ends. You are not the destination. You are the vessel through which progress continues to flow. The moment you stop refining, the current passes you by. True mastery is endless apprenticeship. The wise man never claims wisdom, he simply keeps learning. Yet, even as you continue to evolve, you'll start to notice something extraordinary. Life begins to mirror your discipline with synchronicity. Opportunities seem to appear at perfect timing. People enter your life every when needed. Doors that were once open without effort. This isn't magic, this is alignment. You've trained your thoughts so precisely that reality itself now echoes your intention. This is what ancient thinkers meant when they spoke of divine order. It's not superstition, it's physics. You emit energy through thought, word, and action, and the universe responds accordingly. The careless coincidence, the conscious call at cause and effect. As your inner world harmonizes, you'll also begin to see through the illusions that keep most men trapped. You'll see that envy is ignorance in disguise, that anger is unprocessed fear, that competition is proof of unclarity. You'll stop measuring your worth against others because you'll understand that no one can compete with authenticity. The moment you operate from your highest self, you exit the race entirely. You're no longer in their bay, you've built your own. That's why the truly powerful move quietly. They don't need to convince anyone. They simply exist in truth, and truth needs no defense. If that truth, when fully embodied, gives birth to something rare in this world, peace without passivity. You'll move slower, but everything you do will hit harder. You'll speak less, but your words will linger longer. You'll appear calm, but your presence will feel like pressure. That's what real power is, control. Not control over others, but over yourself, over reaction, over emotion, over impulse. When the world throws chaos your way, you'll smile, because you'll know that chaos is just order in disguise, waiting for you to command it. In time, you'll begin to see life itself a negotiation table every day you trade. You trade time for progress, attention for purpose, comfort for clarity. And every trade you make either compounds your value or deplete it. The mediocre man trades without awareness. He sells his focus cheap. The master trades consciously. Every moment is an investment, every choice a transaction with destiny. When you begin to treat life with this, you stop wasting yourself. You move with intention. You understand that energy is the only true currency, and you spend it on wit, it multiplies. And when the years pass, when the world calls you wise, when others ask how you built so much from so little, you'll laugh. Because you'll know you didn't build it by chasing, you built it by aligning. You didn't create it through luck. You created it through law. You didn't rise because the world helped you. You rose, but you finally stopped resisting yourself. The moment you stopped fighting your nature, you became nature, a force that cannot be contained. You'll realize that the world was never against you, it was waiting on you. That when you'll understand the truest freedom there is, you were never meant to escape mediocrity. You were meant to illuminate it, to show others what's possible, to walk through the same fire they fear and come out refined, not ruined. You'll become proof, living, breathing evidence that the laws of greatness still work discipline, clarity, peace, and purpose. You'll carry them quietly, like a torch passed through generations. And even when you're gone, that flame will burn in the minds of those who heard your words, watched your example, and felt your conviction. That is immortality, the only kind worth chasing. When you stand at the end of your journey, you'll realize it wasn't about wealth, success, or even legacy. It was about the becoming, about shedding everything false until only truth remained, about meeting yourself fully, without fear, and realizing that all along, you were the architect, the warrior, and the masterpiece. And now that the fire has settled into your bones and the noise of striving has quieted into rhythm, you'll begin to understand the rarest truth of all. There was never anything missing. Every lesson, every failure, every delay was part of the design. You weren't behind. You weren't late. You weren't unworthy. You were simply unshaped. Life wasn't denying you. It was preparing you. The detour, the heartbreaks, the restless nights where you questioned your worth, all of them were chiseling tools in disguise. The pain didn't come to punish you. It came to position you. The world doesn't hand greatness to those who demand it. It hands it to those who can carry it. You had to become strong enough to bear what you were asking for. You had to be emptied of ego before you could be filled with purpose. You had to lose your illusions before you could handle the truth. That's why the masters speak softly. They've been humbled by the process. They no longer need to shout about what they've built, because they are what they've built. Their wealth, their wisdom, their peace, none of it is performance. It's substance. It's rooted in law, not luck. You see, the world confuses confidence with noise, but real confidence is quiet. The calm of a man who knows he's done the work, who knows he can rebuild anything he loses, who knows that fortune bends to those who understand time, that the difference between a hussite and a builder. The hussite plays for speed, the builder plays for forever. The hussite wants recognition, the builder wants rhythm, and in the end, rhythm always wins. Because rhythm is hell you outlast chaos. When everyone else is reacting to the market, to opinions, to emotions, you're steady, you're patient. You've learned to separate urgency from importance, movement from gent. Now what the top 1% understand, the long game is the only game.
They don't chase what hot. They don't panic when things cool. But they know that everything moves in cycles, and those who endure the lows with discipline inherit the highs with interest. You can only see this truth once you've detached your worth from results. Once you've realized that the scoreboard doesn't define you, the process does. The truth is, mediocrity is not a lack of talent, a lack of endurance. Most men can start strong, few can stay consistent when no one watching.
But that fair transformation lives in the invisible seasons, in the quiet repetition, in the nights when it feels like no progress is being made. Because that the paradox of compounding, invisible until it's undeniable. Nothing seems to change for years. Then everything changes at once. You will not notice the growth the day it happens, but one day you'll wake up and realize you've become what you once envied, and you'll smile not from pride, but from understanding. You'll know it was not luck, wasn't timing, wasn't talent, it was law. The same law that built empires from pennies, legends from failure, and peace from chaos. That's why Buffett never rushed. He said it clear. You can't produce a baby in 1 month by getting 9 women pregnant. Growth has its own clock, and the wise man aligns with it instead of resisting it. When you live by that principle, impatience becomes a signal, not a curse. Every moment you feel restless, remind yourself that the old you dying, the version of you addicted to speed, to praise, to proof, let him go. The new you builds slower, but stronger. Doesn't crave attention, he cultivates power. And as he builds on law, his structure doesn't collapse when the world shakes. But don't misunderstand peace for passivity. Calmness doesn't mean inaction. It means precision. You move when in time, not when inconvenient. You strike when the odds favor you, not when the crowd cheers. You conserve energy. You observe patterns. And when you act with full conviction. That what separates momentum from movement. The masses move to be seen. The master moved to create change. When you act from clarity, your smallest decisions is louder than 1,000 empty hustles. At odds and ISO and something no one tells you. When you truly rise, you will be tested again. But the tests will change form. The challenges won't come poverty, rejection, or failure anymore. They'll come a comfort, an excess, and applause. Success will try to sedate you. Comfort will whisper that you've done enough. Ease will tempt you to drift. That when you must remember, discipline is more important after success than before it. Because hunger builds you, but complacency buries you. The same fire that got you here must be rekindled daily. Every morning, you must choose to remain a student. Every victory must be followed by humility. The moment you stop sharpening the blade, it begins to rust. And so, your journey never truly ends. It evolves. It becomes less about building wealth and more about building wisdom. Less about adding things, more about subtracting noise. You'll find joy not in acquisition, but in mastery. You'll measure your days not by what you've earned, but by how much peace you've preserved. You'll begin to understand why Buffett still reads 6 hours a day, why he still lives simply, why he avoids the spotlight, because he learned that simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. The highest level of success is serenity. When that serenity becomes your baseline, your presence itself becomes wealth. You'll walk into a room and shift it without speaking. You'll attract respect, not because you demand it, but because you embody it. You'll move through life like water, soft enough to flow, strong enough to shape mountains. The same men who once doubted you study you. The same people who once mocked your patience will beg for your advice. But you won't seek revenge or validation. You'll simply smile because you'll know that they weren't your enemies. They were your teachers. Every critic, every doubter, every moment of struggle served its purpose to forge the stillness that now defines you. And that when you'll see the entire journey for what it truly was, not a climb, but a return to your essence, a return to clarity, a return to the truth you were born with but forgot along the way. You'll see that you were never trying to become someone new. You were simply remembering who you've always been, for the world told you to forget. The man you were searching for was always within you, waiting for you to quiet the noise long enough to hear him. And when that remembering completes itself, when the dust settles and you see yourself without distortion, you'll feel something different from excitement or triumph. You'll feel peace, the kind that doesn't depend on applause, timing, or success. A peace that doesn't need a reason. It's the peace of alignment, the knowing that every detour, every heartbreak, every sleepless night led you exactly where you were meant to be. And that peace is not passive. It's powerful. The kind of peace that builds nations, the kind of calm you can build empires on, the kind of steadiness that silences storms, because you'll finally understand the secret the masters have always known. It's not about controlling life, it's about mastering yourself within it. From this place, life begins to respond differently. The same events that used to shake you now sharpen you. The same criticism that once hurt now fuels refinement. The same failures that once broke you now build you. You begin to see feedback everywhere, lessons in everything. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what is this trying to teach me? That big question transforms suffering into strategy. Every challenge becomes a classroom. Every loss becomes a lecture. Every pain becomes a prophet whispering what must change next. And when you see the world that way, you stop running from difficulty, you start inviting it. Because you understand that growth doesn't come from ease, it comes from pressure, and pressure is the proof that potential is waking up. Most men live their whole lives trying to escape pressure. They chase comfort, applause, distraction. They think they're resting, but they're decaying. You've learned that true rest doesn't come from escaping the fire. It comes from walking through it and realizing it cannot burn what real. You felt the heat, you've endured the flames, and now you wear the scars like armor. They no longer remind you of pain, they remind you of proof. Proof that you survived what others surrendered to. Proof that your spirit was unbreakable even when your world was not. Those scars are symbols of weakness, they're signatures of victory. They say, I've been tested and I am still held. At this level, gratitude changes meaning. It no longer reserved for blessings, it extended to burdens. You start to thank the very things that once made you curse. You thank the failure that forced your reinvention. You thank the heartbreak that revealed your resilience. You thank the betrayals that refined your discernment. Gratitude becomes your weapon, yet how you transform pain into power. Because when you can be grateful for the storm loses its grip. The world can't break a man who refuses to be bitter. It can only build him stronger, and then gratitude roots itself deep. You begin to notice another shift. Judgment disappears. You stop comparing your chapter to someone's old book. You stop envying those who walk different paths. You realize everyone is fighting invisible wars. You learn to see through people instead of reacting to them. You no longer waste energy trying to convince others they're on their own journey, and you have your own law to obey, that what true detachment is, not coldness, but clarity. You can love without needing to control. You can help without losing your peace. You can care without carrying what not yours. It in this detachment that your decision-making reaches its highest form. You no longer chase opportunity, you filter it. You no longer say yes to everything, you say yes aim to what aligns. You start turning down things that look good because you've learned that not everything good is meant for you. Most men never reach this point. They drown in abundance because they never develop discernment. But your standard has changed. You no longer measure success by addition, but by subtraction. The more focused you become, the more powerful your direction. The less you chase, the more you attract, and then a strange kind of beauty emerges. That everything you've built, the wealth, the freedom, the wisdom, isn't the goal anymore. It's the side effect of who you've become. The true reward isn't the castle, it's the clarity. The riches aren't in your account, they're in your awareness. Because once you've mastered yourself, you could lose everything tomorrow and rebuild without fear. That's the difference between possession and power. Possession can be taken, power cannot. Now you walk differently. You speak slower, you move deliberately. You've learned to be precise instead of loud, steady instead of showy, intentional instead of impulsive. You've learned that the strongest man in any room is not the one who dominates it, but the one who doesn't need to. You don't compete anymore because you've outgrown the need to prove. You lead quietly, with presence, with integrity, with patience. The people who meet you now don't understand what changed. They don't feel it. You don't radiate need, you radiate certainty. And certainty is magnetic, that when you become dangerous, not to others, but to limitation itself. Because when a man no longer fears loss, manipulation loses its hold. When he no longer seeks validation, rejection loses its sting. When he no longer craves comfort, chaos loses its threat. He becomes ungovernable, not because he rebels against the world, but as he governs himself. That the rarest kind of power, the kind that doesn't need to shout to be heard, the kind that doesn't need control to command respect, the kind that bends reality without force. And when you finally reach that state, when your outer life mirrors your inner mastery, the world becomes simple again. You stop overcomplicating what was always clear. You stop waiting for signs and start becoming one. You stop asking how long it'd take and start asking how far you can go. You realize that the horizon you were chasing was never outside, it was expanding within you the whole time. You've become both the traveler and the trail. You've stopped chasing meaning and started creating it. That is the essence of mastery. Not perfection, but alignment. Not domination, but harmony. The world may call it wisdom, success, or enlightenment, but to you, it's just living in rhythm with law. You've seen through the illusions, faced the fire, transcended the noise, and found truth waiting in the silence. And now you carry that truth forward and with a torch, a torch to light the path for those still wandering in the dark, for those who feel the same ache you once did. Because in the end, that the purpose of all this, not to escape mediocrity for yourself, but to show others that they can too. To be the living reminder that greatness isn't a gift, it's a decision renewed every day in the quiet of your mind. To prove that a single man, once lost, can become the example that ignites thousands. That is how legacy is built, not by wealth or power alone, but by living proof that freedom is possible.